It's estimated that about 1,700 are from Morocco, and the authorities are increasingly concerned about attacks being launched in the kingdom. As a result, anti-terrorism laws have been modified and controls tightened along the border with Algeria and at airports. But is the terrorism threat being exaggerated? That's a question I'll be putting to my guest in just a moment. But first, this report on what pushes Moroccans to join jihadi groups.
Every day, around 5,000 people cross between Spain and Morocco at the Melilla enclave, a patch of Spanish land embedded in northern Africa. In late September, an alleged head of recruitment for the Islamic State organization was arrested here. A joint investigation by Moroccan and Spanish authorities led to the arrest of 8 other people in Nador on the Moroccan side. Trafficking of all kinds is common along this heavily monitored border, from counterfeit clothing to drugs. Evidence suggests that increasingly the proceeds from these operations have been helping people on the journey to jihad.
We live in a border area where poverty is widespread, above all among the Muslim population. It's fertile ground for extreme jihadist ideas.
Around 1,700 Moroccans are thought to have joined those fighting in Syria and Iraq, mostly made up of people from the poorer northern cities of the country. In this suburb of Tangiers, poverty and the lack of opportunity have already pushed many overseas to fight jihad. Journalist Khalid Saleh has looked into the causes behind this phenomenon, fueled by online propaganda videos. He says the popularity of these videos is linked to flaws in Morocco's religious society.
Religious education in Morocco is not sufficient to teach the good, real values of Islam, those that we understand from the text of the Quran and the conduct of the Prophet. All these values which are not being preached by all these self-appointed religious leaders.
The principal argument put forward by the video producers is that war must be waged against the enemies of God, religion used as a pretext to accuse others of being bad Muslims. There are also organizations fighting against the jihadist propaganda. Here in Beni Makouda, a poor area of Tangiers, the Shifa Association aims to fight against delinquency and the disenfranchisement felt by many young people here. Coordinator Ammar Mlahi says the crisis in Europe and the tightening of immigration policies have been major factors aiding jihadist recruitment.
It's a recent phenomenon because before immigration was seen as the solution, but now the doors have closed and the young have learned that there's no future for them in Spain. When many others returned after suffering painful experiences, they understood the solution doesn't lie in immigration, but perhaps for some in Syria instead.
Access to sufficient work and study opportunities could help to stop young people from leaving. This young man says that alongside the doctrine, it was the lack of prospects and the promise of 60 euros a day in pay that pushed him to the edge of departure.
I met some people at the mosque I go to. They changed my mind. They had arguments. I don't even know how they managed to convince me. It was at that point I abandoned the idea of working at the port. They told me that life in Spain wasn't worth the effort. Now that there's the financial crisis, they told me Syria was better. I was about to leave when I found out that people who'd come back from Syria were on the edge of madness, and others who wanted to return are still stuck there.
People talk about this openly. They speak about it as if it was a football match or just part of everyday life. Anyway, they came to see me, but I refused to become indoctrinated. Because I've seen them around in Beni Makouda. I've seen them selling drugs and abusing people, and that type of thing is against Islam.
Rida bin Othman has spent the past 5 years in prison. He was convicted for promoting terrorism, but the human rights activist has always protested his innocence. According to him, authorities have not done enough to stop radical ideas from spreading.
There's a great deal of responsibility on the part of the authorities. They've let Wahhabist literature spread in poor neighborhoods. The authorities knew about it. There were cultural exchanges, books were being passed around, conferences were being held. This ideology has been given time to mature and spread, creating the current situation.
Since the rise of the Islamic State organization, Morocco has revised its anti-terror legislation. Both Moroccans and foreigners found guilty of promoting or planning this type of Islamist jihad now face up to 15 years in prison.
Now, for more on this, I'm joined from Berlin by Mohammed Masba. He's a fellow at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Hello, thank you very much indeed for being with us. Now, I'd like to start off with something that's in our report. We see Amar Mlahi from the Chifa Association saying that Europe's economic crisis and the tightening of immigration policies have been major factors in aiding jihadist recruitment. Do you agree with that? And if not, when did the rise of candidates for jihad begin?
I don't think that the European economic crisis is the main reason for the flow of jihadis to Syria. We have to return back to 2004, where hundreds of young Moroccans leave actually to fight in Iraq with the Al-Qaeda in Iraq. So this is not a new phenomenon. It has, and even Moroccan fighters have been presence in the 90th and 80th during the Afghan-Soviet wars. So it's something that has roots in the recent history and has several factors that are contributing to this phenomenon.
And what are the authorities doing about it? In particular, what are they doing about recruitment via social networking sites?
Exactly. I think the new the new sets is that the social media became the new vehicle for recruitment. Now through Facebook and Twitter and other websites, a lot of young people has been recruited through the traditional relations of peers and friends and classmates, etc. So yes, we are witnessing a new phenomenon of social media recruitments through
I understand that most Moroccans fighting in Syria are members of a group called Harakat Sham al-Islam. What can you tell us about this group that the US considers to be a terrorist organization?
Yeah, exactly. I think Harakat Sham al-Islam became irrelevant today. It was actually last year very active, especially in the Aleppo region. But after the death of its founder, Ibrahim Ben Shkroun, in last April, the group has dropped. They have problems now with having a new leadership. Also, its Sharia committee has left and joined the Jabhat al-Nusra, etc. So the recent move of the Harakat Sham al-Islam into the front of Ansar Din is just an attempt to recover its losses during the fight in April. So I think the group now, it's irrelevant, and to be listed as a terrorist group does not mean anything in reality.
Now, you were just saying that it's been weakened. Does that mean then that the threats that have been made of attacks back in Morocco by certain jihadis aren't very credible?
I think we should not exaggerate the phenomenon of returnees. First, because most of the jihadis in Syria does not want to return back to their homelands. The second is that those who want to return express their disillusionment of the fightings between Islamic State in one side and Jabhat al-Nusra in the other side. So many of them does not want to return to harm their country, but they want just to return back. But this is really a difficult situation for the authorities, how to distinguish between those who want to revenge and those who want to repent and enter again to society.
You say it's a difficult situation for the authorities, but I understand that you believe the Moroccan authorities are exaggerating the terrorism threat and in some degree taking advantage of the situation.
Exactly. I think we should not discredit the effort of the Moroccan authorities in countering terrorism, but in the same time it's obvious that they are taking advantage of the situation. We have to know, for example, to see that in the recent months there was a repression on several civil society and human rights NGOs that criticized the practices of the Ministry of the Interior. This is something that we should not neglect. We should, Moroccan authorities should, in one hand, be very cautious and use preemptive measures, but in the same time without restricting freedoms and liberties in society.
Mohamed Masbah, thank you very much indeed for joining us from Berlin.